Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for March 2nd, 2018. On today's show, we're going to be diving into a bunch of news, including the latest on the Fox-Disney deal, 26 new releases announced by the Walt Disney Company, Star Wars Episode 9 speculation, Stranger Things casting for Season 3, Greta Gerwig, and the future of MoviePass. And we'll also be talking about some stuff at the water cooler as well. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta, and joining me on today's podcast is Slash Film Senior Writer Ben Pearson.
Hey, what's going on?
And Slash Film Writers Hoai-Tran.
Hey, everyone.
And Chris Evangelista.
Hello.
Okay, guys, before we get started, let's gather by the virtual water cooler to talk about what we've been up to. HT, I saw on your Instagram that you went to Japan?
I almost did. So I was at a cherry blossom themed pop-up bar that also happened to be home to Godzilla and a Japanese alleyway bar. It was really cool. It was in honor of the Cherry Blossom Festival that happens in DC every year in the spring. And it's the same pop-up bar that actually did the Game of Thrones and Stranger Things pop-up bars that went viral last year and the year before. And they went all out again this year. This time they, in addition to having an area that was that replicated the cherry blossom trees, they decided to go all out in their Japanese appreciation and have a room dedicated to the 1960s Godzilla movie, Gojira, and also have one section of the bar that was identical to like the alleyway bars that you can find in Tokyo. So it was really amazing, and I had a lot of fun. I took a picture next to Godzilla, which actually breathed smoke and moved at one point, so that was very cool. And there was one area of the bar that was like a wall that was just plastered in manga pages. So I was like, wow, this is like a bar that was made for me.
Yeah, the pictures are cool. I'm not sure, how much crossover there are from people listening to this podcast and reading the site, but people that listen to this podcast might not know, but we actually have a weekly column on the site called The Water Cooler, where we write about, stuff outside of the normal movies and TV. And you wrote about that in The Water Cooler. This week I wrote about a YouTube channel that I have been diving into a lot lately. It's this YouTube vlogger named Ramsay, and he's a magician in Canada, but it's not a channel just made for magicians, although you will get more out of it, I think, if you are. But when it's at its best, I think it's when he's going on adventures, traveling the world because of his magic gigs. He's a professional magician, and his interactions with his friends and just hanging out and having fun. And I talk about that in the water cooler, and I link you to his channel. I just wanted to give a shout out to our weekly water cooler segment and Chris Ramsay, who I am a big fan of. But let's dive into the news. First up, Disney is acquiring 20th Century Fox, maybe? Chris, what is going on?
The deal, it's probably still happening, but there's a new complication, and there's a lot of facts and figures which I myself don't even fully understand. You can go read the full story at slashfilm.com, but the gist of it is Comcast wants to buy the UK satellite TV provider Sky, which Fox also wants to buy. Fox already owns a portion of that, but due to certain regulations, they can't own all of it. So Comcast wanting to buy Sky is going to maybe make the deal less enticing for Disney. This is a direct quote from the original story, which is from the New York Times. Whoever prevails, it will shake up Disney's plans. Either 21st Century Fox will have to pay more for Sky, or Disney will lose a valuable international property to Comcast. For either Comcast or Disney, Sky offers a platform for international expansion. So it's just muddying the waters. The deal is probably still going to happen, but it's not going as smoothly as Disney had hoped.
I'm going to be interested when this actually gets finalized and we actually find out this happening. I think most people have said it's going to take about a year for it to actually go through, get all the regulatory stuff done. But I'm sure until then we'll be talking about it here on the podcast and on the site. But speaking of Disney, yesterday we talked about on the podcast them surprising us with a new date for the release of Avengers Infinity War. We recorded the podcast, and right after we were getting off recording the podcast, Disney decided to announce a bunch of new release dates. Actually, not just a bunch of new release dates. They announced 26 new release dates. Ben, you did a good job trying to figure out what's going on here on the site. What is going on here?
My God. I mean, I nearly vomited yesterday when all of this came out because it's so many just like untitled Disney live action, untitled Marvel, untitled Pixar in a row. And it's literally the 26 new release dates from now until 2023. So this is a pretty common practice for studios to plant their flags in the ground early and
not this far out, I don't think. 2023, well, right, that's like 5 years.
That's what I was going to say. It's common practice for them to do that for for the next, the early foreseeable future. But yeah, this seems excessive. And if you go to the article, which we'll link to in the show notes, I've written out every Disney release date from 2019 all the way until they announced the end of this new announcement, and it is like, I mean, it's just like scrolling through utter chaos. It's really crazy. So they released a bunch of Marvel release dates as well, some new ones, and going from May 1st of 2020 all the way to July 29th of 2022. We speculate on the site about what those films might end up being, anything from a Ravagers Guardians of the Galaxy spinoff to Black Panther 2 to Doctor Strange 2, and maybe that Black Widow solo movie thrown in there. We are not entirely certain if Lucasfilm releases count among these Disney release dates that just came out, but we're sort of guessing that they are. So I speculated a little bit about maybe an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie could be one of those dates. Rian Johnson's new trilogy that we've talked about, one of those entries could be one of these dates. I mean, it's the dates are so far away. It's borderline impossible to speculate about what the actual specific dates could be and what movies could be involved. Plus, there are so many that are just untitled Disney live action, and we know that Disney is developing a ton of movies that could fit under that categorization. They've got Peter Pan and Jungle Cruise and The Little Mermaid and Maleficent 2 and Cruella, Sword in the Stone. I mean, there are just so many, like the list goes on and on and on. So it would be a fool's errand to attempt to accurately guess exactly which slot each of those movies is going to drop into. But yeah, you can go to this article and check out the full calendar of Disney release dates and just shudder and cower in fear. That's basically what I did yesterday afternoon.
And we were just talking about Fox. We don't even know if the future of the Fox films are in this slate of release dates. They could be.
I don't think they are, to be honest with you. I think I feel like it would be jumping the gun for them to include Fox releases in here. So I think this is all purely Disney stuff. So
No, I agree with that. But what I'm saying is, like, a year down the line, they're just basically planting flags. I don't even think, for some of these movies in 2022 and 2023, they probably even have movies that they have attached to those dates. I think they're just planting flags in those dates, and I think those could very well be another X-Men movie. 5 years from now. Do you know what I mean?
Right now they could just be saying it's an untitled Disney live action movie, and then that could very easily morph into being an X-Men movie. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, because all this is to exhibitors and other studios, them planting a flag and being get off my lawn. We're going to have a movie on this weekend.
I dare you to schedule something at the same time.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, I'm sure in the next 5 years we'll be covering this and covering out what movies are coming out in those release dates up until 2023, if we're still around. You might be getting your movie news on your refrigerator by then. I don't know. But let's talk. We were talking about Disney. Let's talk about one of their big properties, and that is the franchise of Star Wars. We have a bunch of Star Wars news today, including some a reveal that Star Wars Episode 9 may reveal what Luke's final lesson was to Rey? HD, what do we know?
So we know in Star Wars: The Last Jedi that Luke had promised Rey that he would give her 3 lessons, no more, no less. But we know that he only got to 2 before Rey fled Ahch-To, and they ended up parting ways. But according to a deleted scene, we did see part of that 3rd lesson. We reported on this deleted scene earlier in December, and it was the caretaker raid, or rather when Rey and Luke see a sort of commotion and lots of fire at the shoreline near the caretaker village. Luke tells her that it is a group of bandits who are raiding the village and regularly come to attack the villagers. And after she runs off to save them, she realizes that was a lie, and that that was what started fracturing their relationship to begin with. So Rian Johnson clarifies that this was actually not the final lesson, or rather, people can interpret it as the final lesson, but it's actually something that will possibly be explored in Star Wars Episode 9. He was really coy about it. He said that that fans can choose to interpret this as Luke's final lesson, but mainly the lesson is that Rey cannot trust Luke. So he says that it's a possibility and that there's potential for J.J. Abrams to explore what Luke is trying to teach Rey in when Star Wars Episode 9 comes about. So there's no actual definition of what this final lesson will be, but it's a hint at the future.
And speaking of deleted scenes, there's this whole article on some of the deleted scenes that we will get a glimpse at when Star Wars: Last Jedi hits Blu-ray and VOD. Brad wrote it up for the site, but Ben, what do we know about the deleted scenes that we didn't already know from my extensive report in December?
Yeah, it seems like there are 3 that we want to touch on today, and one of them is involving BB-8 playing a hologram for Finn. So one of the scenes that takes place early in The Last Jedi and sort of was originally intended to provide a little bit of context for why Finn was deciding to potentially leave the Resistance and go find Rey. And at one point, when he has woken up from his injuries and sort of recovered, BB-8 rolls up next to him and shows him a hologram of the moment at the end of The Force Awakens when Rey gives him, a touching goodbye as he's lying unconscious in this medical bay. And Rian Johnson said that he originally thought, he said, I was looking for any opportunity I could to emotionally connect those two. I thought it was a really sweet little scene. I loved John Boyega's performance in it. Ultimately, it was meant to explain his motivation for going to find Rey and quit the Resistance, but we realized that you understood his motivation because he tells it to Rose. So that is, one of those things that just sort of falls away naturally when in the editing process. The other one, really briefly, was Luke and Leia having a moment to mourn for Han Solo. We don't really get to see Luke's reaction to that, to the news that Han has been killed. It's sort of the movie, I believe, in my memory anyway, it cuts away and we don't really get to see him like sink in and really have a moment with that. But apparently there was a scene that was shot where he gets to sit in his stone hut by himself and tears form in his eyes and he remembers his old friend. And then the film actually cuts to Leia sitting in a similar position, also, sort of remembering Han at that time, and that one got cut just for pacing, which happens all the time in movies like this. And then the last one, really quickly, was the stormtrooper that was supposed to be played by Tom Hardy. We knew Tom Hardy was playing a stormtrooper in the movie, but I don't know if anybody had actually pinpointed which one he was yet. Peter, I don't think you haven't seen anything about that, right? You don't know.
Of which one? I thought it was a scene that they were in an elevator with some stormtroopers, but
okay. So yeah, I guess that's the part that ended up getting deleted, or maybe a section of it did. So when Finn and Rose infiltrate the Mega Star Destroyer and they're in disguise as First Order officers, one of the stormtroopers recognizes Finn in an elevator and apparently gets like really excited that he that he recognizes Finn because Finn used to be a stormtrooper, and he is saying how cool it is that his old friend FN2187 ended up graduating to become an officer. And so that implies that there's been a cover-up in the First Order, and that Rian Johnson says the implication from the exchange is that this was obviously an embarrassment that this happened with Finn, and that the First Order didn't let the info get out as much as they could. So they didn't want that information spreading, that, you know, they had a big defector and who went on to help the resistance and all of that stuff. So they just basically covered up that whole incident. So yeah, that I guess would be where Tom Hardy's character, or Tom Hardy's stormtrooper, showed up in the movie.
Interesting. And we'll get a chance to see this soon. When does Last Jedi come out on home video?
Yeah, it comes out on digital download on March 13th, and then it hits Blu-ray and DVD on March 27th.
Okay, and our last bit of Star Wars news today, it looks like John Williams is hinting that Episode 9 could be his last Star Wars movie. HT, what do we know?
So John Williams has been with the Star Wars films since 1977, and he's composed all the scores for all 8 films, but that partnership may soon be over. In an interview with Classical KUSC, John Williams suggested that after Star Wars Episode 9, he won't be scoring any more Star Wars films. I'll quote, "We know J.J. Abrams is preparing one now that I will hopefully do next year for him. I look forward to it. It'll round out a series of 9. That will be quite enough for me." So he hasn't confirmed anything yet, but it seems like he's ready to retire from the Star Wars films. Not sure if it's retiring from scoring altogether, but it seems like it's something that he is intending for now.
Okay, you know, this brings about a question. I think that's probably fitting that he completes these 3 trilogies. But I guess the question I want to throw to you guys is, you know, if they make future Skywalker Saga episodes to this series, if some of those dates in those 27 release dates in Disney's future is Episode 10, will it be wrong to have a movie that isn't scored by John Williams? Chris, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I don't want to be too downbeat, but John Williams is, you know, he's not a young whippersnapper anymore. So one day he will shuffle off this mortal coil, and they're going to be making Star Wars films until the sun burns out, it seems. So it just seems sooner or later they're going to have to make a Star Wars film without his music. I mean, it'll never be the same. They'll still use his themes, obviously, like, you know, Rogue One wasn't scored by him, but it still borrowed his theme. So that'll always be a part of the franchise, but it's sort of inevitable. I mean, you know, they really do have Star Wars films planned for the foreseeable future. It's just inevitable that John Williams will eventually not be part of them.
Okay, I guess the question is, whoever they bring on to these Star Wars films, obviously, you know, the standalone Star Wars films they're getting other composers, as you mentioned with Rogue One and Solo. But, you know, they're able to do whatever they want to do, you know, make it sound different. You know, those Star Wars films look different and feel different. So, at least that's the goal. So I guess, Ben, the question I want to ask you is, you know, will these future Star Wars films, if they keep on doing these episodes, will these composers have to, like, kind of mimic and channel John Williams?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because his music is such, you know, an integral part of the fabric of the Skywalker saga, I feel like, yeah, I think if you keep the Skywalker saga alive, if you do an episode 10 and beyond and keep that story going, yeah, I think it probably makes sense to save the experimentation, as it were, for the spin-offs, or you know, creating a new sound for Rian Johnson's trilogy, or the series of films that the Game of Thrones guys are working on, or some of these other projects, and try to keep that more classic John Williams vibe alive in the Skywalker saga. Yeah, I think people, you know, and we've seen other composers come up as proteges under John Williams, Michael Giacchino being one of them, and so we know it's possible to capture you know, a semblance of the John Williams sound, and I think that's probably what they will keep doing, because, like I said, it's so ingrained in the type of movie that Star Wars is, and I think if they're going to keep the Skywalker franchise going, they should keep that aspect intact as well.
HT, I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. What composer would you like to see take the reins from the Star Wars series?
Oh, I think I'd like to see Michael Giacchino. He's worked with Disney frequently, so I think that he could work in that environment. But I really love his scores, and I think he has a really grand, epic feel to a lot of them, and I think that could suit Star Wars really well.
Yeah, no, Giacchino, I think is definitely. I mean, Ben mentioned him, and he did Rogue One, right? He took Rogue One on from.
Yeah, I think Alexander Desplat. Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like that was a rushed effort. Like he had like a month to do that score or something insane like that. I would love to see what Michael Giacchino could do if he had the time to spend on a Star Wars score. That given that like effort, and I feel like he's just the perfect guy with the he has so much emotion in his themes. But let's move on to another story, and that is that Greta Gerwig is planning 3 more Sacramento-based movies to follow Lady Bird. Chris, you wrote this up for the site.
Because Lady Bird was one part of Sacramento, there's a lot of different parts of Sacramento that I'd like to explore too. I feel like I have the privilege of being from a place. I'm really from that place. My family didn't move. My family's still there. My friends are still there. I feel like I can actually speak to it with some feeling. So look for 3 more Greta Gerwig Sacramento films. It's the Greta Gerwig cinematic universe.
I never thought I wanted to see a movie based in Sacramento. Have any of you actually been to Sacramento?
I have not.
No.
It is... In my experience, is not a great place, but I'm sure it is a great place for the people that live there. But, I never knew I wanted to see a movie set in Sacramento until I saw Lady Bird, and that movie perfectly captures that area of California. I don't know. I'm just not sure if there is that many stories to be told in that that corner of this country, but maybe there are. Greta Gerwig knows better than me, obviously.
I don't know. I look forward to the Sacramento Criterion collection from Greta Gerwig in the future.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. After Lady Bird, I'll it doesn't matter if like Greta Gerwig's next film is marketed as watching paint dry for 2 hours. I'm there opening weekend. I'm buying a ticket. Not using my MoviePass. So she has me, but I just didn't know that I wanted to see a trilogy of Sacramento movies, but I guess I do. Also, Chris, you covered some Stranger Things 3 casting. We have a legacy bit of casting here. What do we know?
Yes, so Maya Thurman Hawke, who is the daughter of Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman, has been cast in Stranger Things 3. I guess that's what they'll officially call it, since Stranger Things Season 2 was Stranger Things 2. She is playing a quote-unquote alternative girl bored with her mundane day job. She seeks excitement in her life and gets more than she bargained for when she uncovers a dark secret in Hawkins, which is the town the show is set in. And also Priya Ferguson, who played Lucas's sister in Season 2, and she was literally the best character of that whole season, is also coming back for a more expanded role.
Do we know anything about these characters other than what you just told us?
We already know. We've already met Lucas's sister, obviously, in the first season. But beyond that little blurb I just told you about Maya Thurman Hawke's character, we don't really know that much.
Interesting. If you go to the story, I believe we've included that photo of her. She looks remarkably like her mother.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, lastly, I gave us some time so we could talk about this because I think this is very interesting. Since starting this podcast, we've been talking a lot about MoviePass. They basically lowered their price to $9.99. You can see a movie a day with their service at participating theaters. We've talked about, how that company plans to make money off analytics, and that's what they were claiming. Trying to now. We got some reports that MoviePass was not allowing subscribers in some markets to buy tickets to Red Sparrow. And and actually Black Panther. I have since learned Black Panther last week. It was banned in some markets. HT, we contacted MoviePass. What did we learn? What is going on here?
So according to a statement from MoviePass, the subscription service is testing its service to optimize the experience for theaters, distributors, and members. The rest of the statement goes, we occasionally remove some films from our ticketing inventory in some markets for a limited time, similar to how we organically promote films in certain markets to better understand member behavior. As part of this ongoing testing, we have stepped up our efforts to remind members to always double-check the MoviePass app to confirm that the preferred show times and theaters are available for the movie that they are planning to see before they leave the theater. So essentially, what we see now is that several subscribers to MoviePass are not being able to see Red Sparrow in select markets because the screening is not supported by MoviePass, as it says on their app. And it seems to be limited to select markets. We're not sure which markets they are exactly, but it seems to be Red Sparrow particularly because MoviePass is currently promoting Death Wish through their subscriber emails. And we're going to go a little bit into speculation here, but this seems to be some sort of strategy from MoviePass to boost the box office gains of the movies that they're sponsored with or promoting with, such as Death Wish this week. And it may be some sort of tactic to get studios to sponsor or to partner with them more often. It's something that we've seen happen before with MoviePass removing some of their AMC theaters from their app as an attempt to sort of negotiate with AMC to get higher revenue from their concessions. So this is something that's we're not really sure why they're doing it. And the statement does not seem to be quite clear with the reasoning, except that they're testing things. But it seems to be a negotiating tactic using the subscriptions base.
Yeah, and it seems to be in select markets. I know LA is one of the markets being hit with Red Sparrow. I can't see Red Sparrow with my MoviePass. I know our own Brad Oman got to see it last night in Indiana. I had no problem. So it depends on your market. But I think this is interesting, and I wanted to talk about this with you guys because this is potentially how MoviePass is going to make their money. Do you know what I mean? Like, most of the industry thought of them as it's an unprofitable business at $9.99 a month, unlimited movies. But it seems like if they can find a way to make the money from the studios by getting studios to sponsor what films are in the app, then that's how they're going to make their money. Like, but at what cost? Like, I theorized to HT. I was talking to HT in Messenger, and I was like, could there be a day when you can't see an opening weekend movie in the theater unless it's a sponsored MoviePass movie?
It's very underhanded, it seems. But yeah, their business model isn't that sustainable. So I wonder if the only way that they can really gain money or gain like substantial income is through sort of strong-arming companies or studios by using their subscription base as a negotiating tool. Chris,
is this wrong?
I mean, wrong is a subjective term, I guess. Like, from a consumer standpoint, it is very sneaky. From MoviePass's standpoint, it's kind of genius. I mean, they've pretty much, if they are definitely doing this, they've found a really good angle to exploit. But I mean, I'm not a MoviePass user, so it doesn't really affect me. But if I did use MoviePass, I would definitely be a little ticked off about this.
Ben, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, it's weird because the CEO of MoviePass has said before that their goal is to get to break even with the subscription and the cost of goods. So it seems like they're on this track. And like you mentioned earlier, Peter, eventually they'll probably start selling, customer data and analytics and make some money that way, but they have to build up their user base even more. I mean, I think they're sitting at like over 1.5 million subscribers right now, but it seems like they're waiting until they get an even bigger number of subscribers before they start pushing that side of the business tactic. So right now, the CEO is just saying that they're just trying to get to break even, and that's their goal at the moment. So, I mean, yes, I think all of this is pretty clearly a ploy on their part to send a message that, yeah, if you want your movie available on our app, go ahead and sponsor us, work with us, pay us to send out these emails and drop ads on our app and all that stuff. And it's probably going to work because MoviePass has had a pretty measurable, significant impact on movie ticket sales. We've written about that and talked about that on the podcast before as well. So I don't see that. This seems like a pretty smart business move, even if it is, a little underhanded on their part.
Yeah, to some smaller films, they've released statistics of being like 20% of that weekend's box office. To MoviePass subscribers. So I'm interested to see if this is going to affect Red Sparrow in any way. I mean, obviously the reviews for Red Sparrow were not positive, so that movie is, and they're also not doing this nationwide. So I'm not sure how you could track down the data. I mean, I'm sure they have the data of the LA market and how much of an impact they probably had on the LA screenings of Red Sparrow versus Death Note. Sorry,
Death Wish.
Death Wish. There's so many death movies. Death Wish. Yes. So I don't know. It just seems kind of like for a service that is supposed to be promoting going to the movie theater, going to see movies you want to see when you want to see them. It just seems like an anti-consumer move. And, the app's also like integrating this feature where you're going to have to take a photo of some users have gotten this, test where they have to take a photo of their movie ticket after they see the movie and send it to MoviePass to prove that they actually saw the movie. It just, I don't know. It just seems like, they're burning through the money and they're trying to find some way to get to that break-even point that you mentioned, Ben. But I'm just not sure this is the way, but maybe it is. Maybe this will not piss off their subscribers. I mean, so far we have this company which is kind of a crappy company. Like, they don't respond to customer service attempts. I know I have so many friends that have tried to contact them, get them to answer a question. A month goes by before they get a response. But the product is such a deal that everybody's willing to do a deal with the devil to get it. Do you know what I mean? Free movies, unlimited, see one every day for a month. Such a great deal. I don't care if I'm doing it with this company that's obviously not doing things with my interest in mind. What does this company need to do to piss off their core user base? HD, do you have any idea?
Due to piss off their core user base, or due to not piss off?
Yeah, how much pushback can they give consumers before these people paying $9.99 a month are like, oh, this isn't worth it?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat because I am a MoviePass subscriber, and even though I am pretty angry at them right now, I know I will not unsubscribe. I'll just keep using it. I guess until it becomes too expensive. I think right now the price point is the big selling point. If they raise it up anymore, then that's when they might start getting pushback. Because for now, people are just willing to go see a movie at whichever theater is available, or maybe they'll push back. They'll hold off seeing a movie until the next weekend because these things are not urgent deal breakers. But I think it's the price that's the deal breaker. That's my theory anyways.
Yeah. Now, I could definitely see a day and age when, as I mentioned before, that you will only get to see a movie with MoviePass on opening weekend if it's a sponsored movie. They could prove to movie theater chains like AMC that they are bringing their subscribers in if they're, boosting up the box office of their theaters in the second and third week of release, which is, usually a lot less than that first weekend. But we'll have to keep an eye on this and see how it does. But I'm sure this isn't going to be enough to, it's not going to be enough for me to cancel my subscription. If I use my MoviePass once a month, it's good enough for me because a movie ticket in LA is like $15. So if I'm paying $9.99, I'm already saving $5 with one movie ticket. So that's good enough for me. But okay, this brings us to the end of today's Slash Film Daily. HT, where can we find more of your work online?
You can find me every day at slashfilm.com, and I'm on Twitter at HTranBuoy.
Ben, where can we find you?
You can find me at slashfilm.com as well, and you can track me down on Twitter at Ben Pears.
Chris, where can we find your work online?
Also slashfilm.com, and I'm on Twitter at Evangelista413.
You can find the links to every story we talked about today, including the water cooler, on slashfilm.com and linked in the show notes. You can find this podcast, Slash Film Daily, on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, now on Spotify. I don't use Spotify, but if you're using Spotify, I guess you can listen to us on there as well. If you have a question, comment, concern, send it to us, peter@slashfilm.com. Please leave your name and general geographic location in case we mention the email on the air. Please go rate and review this podcast in iTunes. Spread the word, tell your friends, and we will see you on Monday.